Hey.
Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast for media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, Fado Kato, and LuckyEevee, and today we are talking about 2007's Enchanted, so let's get things started.
Quick tangent.
So-
Fado Kato is currently Stryker, so don't know if that will change or not.
Right, he
but
changed his username, so from now on, yeah, we might change his username over time, so yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, so now what, yeah, okay, so now Disney has had a long tradition of doing basically live action and animation. I mean, they've done it basically since the days of like the Alice comedies, or even earlier than that with the stuff Walt Disney was making in Kansas City. But
Exactly.
Enchanted was like, I feel like one of the last of them that really integrated, or at least integrated like 2D with like live action in that sort of sense.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Enchanted is basically Disney doing a self-parody of like their classic princess movies of like, you know, of Cinderella, of Snow White, of, you know,
Sleeping Beauty
and that. And it's go ahead.
Yeah, it's a.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a. It's a little bit of a shame because like that movie, for the most part, was meant to one up Shrek. Probably when Shrek was currently like not doing so hot, but like I don't 100% think that was the intent.
Even when Shrek wasn't.
No, it definitely wasn't. Well, that was the thing, is that because Shrek was such a monster hit, it was like every other animated movie of like the 2000s was, oh, we got a fairy tale, so let's spoof a fairy tale kind of deal. And it was good at first, but then, like everything, they did it, and they did way too much of it, and I feel like people just got burnt out with it, which is a shame because, as you said, Enchanted is a real great and really charming movie. I feel like it actually probably, aside from the Shrek movies, is probably the best of like the fairy tale spoofs because it's not done out of like malice or out of jealousy. It's more like a more loving tribute. It's sort of like the difference between Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein and something like, for example, Scary Movie or Epic Movie or one of those kind of things. This, you can tell, was definitely made by people who cared about, the original movies rather than, oh, they were all terrible, let's just make fun of them, or with stuff like, like the new Chippendale movie and stuff like that.
For the most part.
It felt like a self-parody.
Yeah, it felt like a self-parody.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one that really, I feel, works out for us.
Yeah. I especially love the animation. They really went all out for the first bit for the most part. And that's not to discredit the live action.
Definitely. No, live action is great too, but the animation was done by James Baxter, who also worked on, who's the animator of Belle, he was the animator of Rafiki, he was the animator of Quasimodo, he worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So this guy really has a lot of skill, and you can definitely see it in the 2D. It definitely, you can tell it's trying to be like Cinderella, or like, probably more accurately like Sleeping Beauty, but it has a more, I don't want to say modern tinge, but more something akin to like the Disney Renaissance, and that I feel really works in its favor.
Oh yeah, he also did James Baxter, the horse from Adventure Time, and that one moment in Steven Universe, and it really shows.
Oh yeah,
it really does show.
Yeah, this guy's a phenomenal animator.
Yeah.
So it really was.
So, you know how I just said it wasn't going to happen?
What?
It just happened.
What happened?
Oh.
I'll
go do that. Go do that really quick.
We're good. We get to talk about this, and you can always hop back in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, man.
Take your time. Don't worry about it, man. It'll be fine.
Yep.
So yeah,
no rush.
With Enchanted in general, one of the more bigger aspects of how it really works too is, again, with the live action performances, because you got to figure these people are basically like Amy Adams, James Martin, James Marsden, from Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, now probably best known for that. Timothy Spall, all of them basically have to play basically cartoon characters in the real world, and that is such a difficult thing to do. If you can tell by the numerous amount of, let's make these cartoon characters live action movies like the Rocky and Bullwinkle one, where they try to do it and they just can't hit the mark. This, I feel, is really, really well done.
I will say this about the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. For the most part, it actually nails what ultimately brought Rocky and Bullwinkle was. Like, it was funny in some moments.
It does, but I just feel like...
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying here. Yeah, I definitely get it. But like I was saying, I just kind of threw it as an example. Basically, like I said, it really is just showcases like the acting talent put into it. And of course, the ironic thing is with the characters in the quote-unquote real world, ironically, one of the characters who would go on to be perhaps one of the biggest Disney princesses of all time, Idina Menzel, who of course played Elsa in Frozen.
Oh yeah, wait, where was she?
Yeah, I said Elsa.
Idina Menzel.
She's the other woman.
Holy crap!
Yep.
Yeah, she's the woman who goes back to Andalusia and marries.
Marries the prince, tosses the phone.
Really...
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That brings up a lot of implications, by the way, that cell phone technology can exist in some kind of magical fairy tale land. But again, it's part of the satire, so I feel like it really works out for the best there.
Yeah.
Part of the humor.
Is very much part of the humor.
Yeah.
Like, there's
definitely. And really,
fairy tale. So just cell phones can work, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the part, where she sings, all the vermin come in to like clean the kitchen as like a spoof of the famous sequence of Snow White. That's something that, it playfully tweaks at it, but it's not overly malicious. And I kind of like that in the movie, basically.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Speaking of Disney princesses, there are cameos from Jodie Benson as a receptionist, and of course she played Ariel in Little Mermaid.
Nice.
So it really was kind of like a love letter, almost in a way, kind of like almost like a mocking tribute, if you will, of basically, the Disney formula, or at the time it was the Disney formula. Now that I feel like with the more modern movies, the classic Disney, princess formula is so far removed from what they're making now that a lot of the original satire might be lost on like new audiences, I feel.
I feel that too. Man. And also on the subject of like live action people doing like cartoony stuff, the only other person that I can feel can pull off that sort of cartoony atmosphere while also still being live action are people like freaking Jim Carrey, who is honestly...
Oh, yeah. Rowan Atkinson is another one. He could really pull it off. I mean, Mr. Bean is basically a live action cartoon, so it's something that's very hard to do, but when it's done right, like in this movie, man, it is done right.
Oh, yeah, abso-freaking-lutely. Oh, man. Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie when it first came out. I really should watch it again at some point.
Oh, no, it's great. It really holds up. And I feel like when it came out, it actually got an Academy Award nomination for Best Song for like the musical numbers, and it didn't win, but I'm just amazed it was nominated because the numbers in this, I want to say Alan Menken worked in it, and of course he worked on a lot of the big, Disney Renaissance movies. He worked on, of course, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, not Lion King, but I think like Pocahontas and Hercules. And he also did, believe it or not, the musical numbers for Little Shop of Horrors. So that's a little fight for you today. But yeah, it really just shows how good the music is too. It's like it's a pitch perfect. Yeah, it's basically hiring a guy to do a pastiche of the stuff he already did, and he nails it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, man. I really do need to go back and see that
It's a really, really great movie, and it's also is probably the last Disney movie to actually open with the the classic book opening, which is not done as frequently as people think. By the way, it's probably a common misconception that every single Disney movie opens with like a book opening, but it's only probably in like less than a quarter of the animated movies they did. But of course, that was the most iconic one, so that's where it stuck. And it also was the first Disney movie. So go ahead.
And even Chicken Little parodied that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that came out just a couple years before. And that, again, this is pretty much the anti-Chicken Little in that this is Disney basically poking fun at Disney in a way that works, whereas Chicken Little is the same type of thing, but man, it just really does not come together. It's one of the few Disney movies that I actively cannot stand is that. But getting back to Enchanted, I really feel like what helps about it is the reactions to quote unquote the ordinary people to these fairy tale characters.
Oh yeah.
It really showcases, like for example, Robert's reaction to Giselle's giddiness and that. It really just works out for the best because it showcases and it brings realism into it, but it also has the element of fantasy to it that she brightens up people's lives and stuff like that.
I also really enjoyed the joke with like the prince seeing the TV and thinking it was the magic mirror. Oh my gosh! It was
like
so hilarious.
That is perfect. It's something that's been done before and like several other stuff. Like I think there's like a Twilight Zone with Buster Keaton where they kind of do the same joke, but it's an old joke, but it's one that really, really just works out so well. Again, because of his dumbfounded reaction and the part where he's singing in Central Park and the bicyclist almost run him over. It's stuff like that it just really, really works out for the best.
The cycling one is exactly. Oh man. And
of course, how they handle the animal sidekick is really well done too, because of course in the let's put it this way, the fantasy world, the chipmunk is a sidekick, he can talk, and in the real world he can't. He's pretty much almost like a normal animal in terms of how he speaks and that also creates an interesting difference between the fairy tale and the real, for example. I feel like it really works out for the best. And in a way, it kind of predicts, although they were being made around the same time, so I don't know if this is intentional or not. The part with him getting stuck in like the hamster ball really reminds me a lot of Bolt. It made me wonder if they took from that or Bolt took from this. Because they both were being they worked on around the same time. And you gotta figure, this movie was a hit for Disney. This is probably one of their bigger hits in that pre-Tangled, post Emperor's New Groove Disney area that wasn't Pixar. This was probably one of their bigger successes because it manages to take the Disney formula, poke fun at it, while also basically recontextualizing it for a modern day. And I feel like it really works well because of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I just looked it up, and Bolt stole from Enchanted. So,
oh boy,
ta-da! Yeah,
exactly. I have not seen the sequel, by the way. I do not know if it's any good or not, and I have not seen it. So if anyone here has, maybe they can tell me how it is. Disenchanted. No Dragoness content in that, so we can't exactly review it for the show, but...
Oh, yeah, I heard that. I'm a little bummed. I'll double check just to make sure they don't pull, like, a surprise, like, oh, hey, Dragon... Oh, shit.
Right. Like, oh, Narissa's alive. Or if they pull, like a Little Mermaid 2, Narissa's crazy sister!
Or cousin, or
that
whatever.
That is like the weakest... Yeah, exactly. Kind of like how they did in the second Little Mermaid. They had Ursula's crazy sister was the villain.
I hated that so
much. Why wasn't
she
mentioned in the first one?
I hated that so much. Ursula was my favorite character from the first movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Really doing Ursula disjustice.
Speaking of Disney villains, is it?
Oh.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Disney villains, it's time to talk about the big lady herself, Narissa.
Oh, yeah.
Narissa clearly is based on Maleficent and also Grimhilda, the evil queen from Snow White. Definitely more Maleficent in design, but also, of course, she has elements of Grimhilda, like turning to the same, almost the old hag disguise that the evil queen uses in Snow White. And also, Narissa is a better live-action Maleficent than the live-action Maleficent we got.
That's a bit of a shame. That's a bit of a shame. I mean, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't mind the live action Maleficent, but how they overall tackled the movies was not very great. Like the concept's nice.
So it's like they did it so much better. Of course, and of course they rectified that here because to me, basically, Narissa is the only live action Maleficent movie you need. And now the interesting thing is that it's been hinted at, and several comments on the internet have been made about this that Narissa was almost always a dragon, and you can kind of see it in the 2D section. Like her hands at one point look more like dragoness paws. Around her eyes, the eyeshadow looks almost like scales and that. So it really could be a sense of foreshadowing. And it really is a shame that we didn't get to see, at least for like a brief second, a 2D version of Narissa's dragoness form. Because I feel that would be something that would be really, really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Really also, like a missed opportunity, but again, I wanted to keep it a surprise.
Also, also to add to her sort of draconic side, in one scene where they're at like the divorce office, she's looking through the fish tank. The fish are looking at her, and she's like nips at them. Like, oh man. Like, how to Train Your Dragon?
I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, How to Train Your Dragon had even
hints that she's a dragon.
Yeah, like her layer's a cave for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
exactly. That's why a lot of people, on the internet have said that, she always was a dragon. And so it's a very compelling theory. It's something that you definitely can watch it and say, that really does make a lot of sense. And of course, getting back to the whole Maleficent comparison, that her transformation sequence at the costume ball is identical to Maleficent's. However, unlike Maleficent, I love how Narissa still keeps her personality. I'm not saying that Maleficent didn't, but you didn't get to hear much of her talk. And I feel like this movie really rectified that with Narissa almost taunting and teasing like Giselle and Robert and that, and it just works out so well. I feel like, her evil speech, climbing the spire and that, it just is so amazing, and it is so well done for this movie. And Narissa herself looks great. For 2007, that is some fantastic CGI. I mean, you look at like some other stuff being released at this time, and she holds up.
Oh yeah.
Especially with like the face and with the eyes and that, how expressive they are.
Yeah.
It's not on the level of, say, Saphira. I will say Saphira technically looks a little bit better, but we'll get to that in the Eragon episode.
Yeah.
Aragon. I'm looking forward to
that. Yeah, Aragon, exactly.
Aragon, Eragon.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really fascinated at like thinking about it. I'm really interested at how ultimately Narissa holds up compared to other things nowadays. Not to say other things aren't like 100% not great. There are some that actually hold the test of time.
Exactly. There's a clear difference between like and ones that haven't. Like say the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns, where he looks like a PlayStation 2 character.
Oh my goodness.
I remember that. I personally didn't mind that. I could notice it, but
it comes out as like
oh man!
Oh boy!
It really must strike a chord with you, eh, Stryker?
They did not look at all good. It's like they blew the last of their budget on that.
Oh man!
I know.
Yeah, I can notice it.
It still didn't look good, but Narissa herself looked just so great. And again, what's interesting too is when she climbs the building, of course, that's a reference to King Kong, one of the most famous movies ever made. And
the 2003 one.
Intent, 2005, and maybe the 33 original, but that's for later. But there's also another reference to a movie that I find, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but if it is intentional, somebody at Disney really has really good references, because there's a part where Narissa screams and lightning strikes her, and lightning strikes behind her when she's on top of the tower, and that is, I swear to God, shot for shot from a movie called Q The Winged Serpent. Now, Q The Winged Serpent is a 1982, I guess you'd call it fantasy horror, about a giant dragon attacking New York. And there is a shot, I swear to God, it looks exactly like that. And I have no idea if it was intentional or not, but it wouldn't really surprise me, because the dragon basically, I don't want to say mounts, that's not the right word, basically climbs a tower exactly like the one Narissa does, and does the same type of roar with the lightning. So I really think that might have been an intentional reference, and if so, that is awesome. That someone at Disney
what year did this movie come
let's
out?
reference a 1982 horror movie. 1982.
I see. Gotcha. I just heard it. So
have to add this to the list because I am interested in that.
Probably. We'll see.
It's a really good movie. It's a really good. It can't really be done on the podcast because, unfortunately, Q is not a female. They say that in the movie, even though there's like a nest.
Gotcha.
Q is technically a male dragon, and Q the Winged Serpent, I don't want to go too much on a tangent here because I don't want to do that, but Q the Winged Serpent is a weird movie in that the effects are good, but the acting is so weird. It's one of those movies where the acting choices are just all over the place, but I really think that the scene with Narissa basically screaming with the lightning is definitely a Q the Winged Serpent reference.
Well, I might as well just watch it one of these days then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, definitely. It's a fantastic movie. And
I think it's also being shown on your.
Is that Narissa?
I think it's also being shown on your movie thing tomorrow.
Ooh.
Oh no! That's a totally different movie. We'll talk about that another time. But basically,
Okay.
I'm getting back to Enchanted for a second. Basically, Narissa is one of, if not not the last, but it's probably one of the last big Disney villain deaths. And her death is extremely memorable because not only does she, slip off the spire, and you can actually hear her enchanting a spell. She gets impaled on part of the building and falls down while on fire. That is just hardcore. It's like Maleficent, was stabbed with a sword, but this is just going all out. And I can imagine a lot of kids in the audience were pretty surprised at that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
especially
to be
Disney,
fair,
especially for 2000s era Disney.
It's as memorable as Clayton's death from Tarzan.
Oh yeah. I remember.
Oh, definitely. It's on that level. It's on that level of hardcore. It's like, how did Disney of all companies get away with this? I mean, she's falling off the thing. She's on fire. She's screaming. She's trying to get a spell out, and then she just explodes. And that is just something that is just so unlike Disney villain deaths, because for the most part, Disney's villains' deaths were basically
off screen
for the most part.
Unlike,
granted,
unlike the Horned King.
Oh yeah, and Mother Gothel.
His flesh is melted off his bones.
Oh yeah,
and Mother Gothel, and oh gosh, Dr. Facilier, literally getting dragged down to either Papa Legbo or hell.
Absolutely hell, because he's a
priest. Oh, definitely. That is just something too that is so hardcore. And Mother Gothel's death was basically the last of them from basically Disney, because after that, all of their villains were either twist villains or now, where there's no villains at all. And that makes Narissa, I feel, really stand out, because in my mind, she is perhaps the most underrated Disney villain, period. And that she is the last of the, let's say, classic Disney villains, or the original Disney villains, that she basically represents the last of her kind, basically, in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
I mean, to be fair, we would get stuff like Xantiri from the Tangled show, and we also got Turbo from Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh,
but
Turbo.
Yeah, that is. Oh yeah.
Right.
Uh-oh. Disconnected.
I disconnect.
Yep, disconnect. Sadly. There we
There
go.
we go. Back.
Sort of, time period or that basically that really showcases what type of, villains Disney were capable of doing as compared to now where they don't do any villains at all, period. And
For
I
the
feel like
most
it's kind of
part.
a shame, and it's really just yeah.
Oh,
It's a bit of a shame.
unlike Mary Poppins Returns, where they just decided, let's make the bank the villain.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of like in the original, but in a way, the original was more subtle about it, I feel.
Yeah.
And again, that's another, live action animated hybrid that, Disney did.
Yeah.
And it was one of their biggest movies, that and, Bedknobs and Broomsticks and all that.
Oh,
and it just
yeah.
kind of went away for a while. But this, I feel, was the last of the great Disney movies in a lot of respects, I feel.
Yeah.
And in a lot of respects, it really, really holds up. And I feel like and yeah, it did really financially and critically well too. Although, and this is something that is just so crazy, some critics felt that Dragoness Narissa slowed the movie down and should have been cut out. And it's like, really?
No.
You want to cut out the whole climax of the movie? It's like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you?
What
exactly.
the fuck?
Exactly. It's something that's just so out there. Exactly. It's just something that is so out there and it's so stupid. It shows that a lot of movie critics do not know what they're talking about because it just really, without Dragoness Narissa, I feel, it really just is the final showcase, basically, of a lot of things of Disney. And especially, again, with the special effects. I mean, there's parts of her, like when she, looks down at Robert, it's like she is almost seamlessly integrated in it.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, that is incredible because when you figure, 10 years earlier, there was the movie, Dragonheart, which also tried doing a CGI dragon with a human. And Dragonheart is a pretty good movie. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. Draco looks terrible today. And comparing like him to Narissa is like night and day. It is incredible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, heck.
Well, like they can integrate a character like that on like a live action background and such.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a live action background, but Narissa keeps her poise and still looks good for it. Like there are not that many films that do that for the most part.
Is that she's still. Oh, definitely. And the thing is too with Narissa is that she really just. I love, and I really wish more movies that had dragonesses as villains or characters rather turning into dragonesses as villains would do this. Is that she really keeps herself and her personality. I love the echo effect they put on her voice, almost like, the voice of power and that. But I love how she taunts them, basically.
Intimidating.
How she basically shows off her superiority and such. And Susan Sarandon's performance is great. I mean, she really, of course, the animated part, she does great. But when she's Narissa in the real world, even in her human form, not just the dragoness form, even in the human form, she sells it. You buy that she's like a classic Disney villain that has been planted out of her reality and plopped in the middle of New York City.
Oh, absolutely.
And man, she is easily, I think, my favorite part of the movie. Not just Dragoness Narissa, although Dragoness Narissa is definitely up there in terms of the greatness of the movie. Just Narissa in general. She's like I said before, she's one of the last great Disney villains, and it just works out so well.
I mean, granted, we would get stuff like Benedict Cumberbatch's Smaug, and he really sells the Hobbit trilogy, especially.
Oh no! I still say Smaug is the best depiction of a dragon on cinema, but Narissa may be the second. She is that good, and I really, really just enjoy her. And now the interesting thing with Enchanted in general, I mean, it was a big hit, did great at the box office, great critical reviews, nominated for an Academy Award. Disney did nothing with the franchise. They did absolutely nothing with the franchise. They just sat on it. There was talks of making Giselle an official Disney princess, but they couldn't because of rights issues with Amy Adams, because they based Giselle on her face. If they were like to make dolls of her or merchandise of her fee, so Disney were like, yeah, we're not doing that. So that's sadly, but there wasn't like a sequel or a TV spinoff or anything until recently. And of course, that was made for this streaming service.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, they made a sequel, but I don't think it was
But
gonna.
again, it
It
was
was
like
gonna
how
top
many
what
years too late? It's
Enchanted
over
did.
10 years, 15 years too late. And I think it was honest trailers that made this observation in their criticism of the new Hocus Pocus movie. They said something like, remember a time when movies like this could be released theatrically rather than being dumped to a streaming service? And I feel that is so true for Enchanted, that this movie needed to be released in a theater, because that's a lot of the problem with the streaming services. And again, with like Disenchanted, is that just dumping it onto a streaming service itself just really, really just does it a disservice, I think. A disservice to this movie and a disservice to, of course, Narissa herself, who easily is one of the greatest dragonesses, I feel, in cinema history, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
She is that good.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
An interesting part of her design, too, just getting back to her design from it, is the wings on her, because Maleficent famously, had small wings, and of course they took that with Narissa, and strangely enough, I feel like that part of the design really showcases how much care put into it. It's something that's so insignificant, but it's a reference to an older work. It's one that 99.999% of people will not get, and yet it just is so emblematic of just how much care and love. And the same thing too is with Narissa's scales. They have like a shine to them, but it's one that really just works for her. I feel like it works for her because, again, she's like the center of attention. She wants to be, seen. So in that way, I feel like it just works out so great.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. I mean, other people like let's see here. Other dragons like Nelly, Nessie, and
Oh no, there's lots of great Disney dragonesses. Don't get me wrong; that they probably have easily, of course, some of the best in the industry, probably because they made so much. But I feel like Narissa is probably she's not as good as Maleficent, because I feel like Maleficent gets points for being there first, but Narissa is easily up there. She's in at least the top 5 of Disney dragonesses. She is really, really great.
oh yeah, absolutely. Not as perfect, but granted, I don't 100% think that was the intent.
No, of course, of course.
I always found it interesting how Narissa, well, while Maleficent had the prototypical Western bulky body style dragon, Narissa had something of a Eastern long, lanky kind of body, which was a bit different to me for the time period.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Right. I never thought of that before. You're right. It really see, I feel like that design might have also been intentional to differentiate her from the Western dragonesses. Maybe it was an intent rather than to make her have a cartoony shape, to her have probably one of the more realistic depictions, aside of course from the eyes and the mouth and that, but her body shape is probably one of the more realistic depictions of a dragoness on cinema. And I feel like that might also have been part of the intent. That part of the intent was giving her a design that basically was a shorthand to what a dragoness should look like,
Absolutely.
basically.
While I'm still a sucker for the Dawn Bluth dragons, yeah, that was amazing.
Absolutely. The Dawn Bluth dragons
Definitely. Oh,
certainly
definitely.
do
Yep.
it.
All right, now it's time for this week's question, which is, what is your favorite Disney live-action film? This could be anything, not just live-action animated hybrids, because if it was, I'm sure that we'd all, have a pretty good assessment. How about just live-action in general, and then maybe live-action animated hybrids, and see what our answers are?
I've had this since childhood. My favorite, it'd have to be Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, same here.
Easily. That's definitely one of their best. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the first Pirates in general is so well done, but I feel like its 2 sequels, it's like the perfect trilogy, with Davy Jones and of course with the East India Trading Company.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like the newer ones,
great.
I feel like the 2 sequels made after kind of soiled the experience in a way, and that it was a little bit too far. It's like you could have just stopped with a Dead Man's Chest or rather, I'm sorry, at World's
World's
End. They
End,
could have just
yeah.
stuck with that one, and they could have just had a perfect trilogy. But they wanted to make money, and they made the two follow-ups, which sadly were nowhere near as good.
Yeah, I mean, granted, Blackbeard looked pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Blackbeard.
Blackbeard himself was fantastic. He was a good villain in a bad movie. That's how I look at it. Like a lot of the problems with, I feel, the Fork Pirates is that they really just had no idea where to take it, and this was also the time when Johnny Depp's erratic behavior on movie sets started to become more and more well known. So he kind of dragged down the production with it. But yeah, overall, I feel like the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies are some of Disney's finest. Now, my answer to what my favorite Disney live-action movie is probably going to be a more unique one than most, and I'll tell you why. It's actually 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This was done in the 50s, and the visual effects on this are just so incredible. Like the shots of the submarine. This is back when computers were the size of a room, so there was no CGI. All of this is done practically, and it just looks so amazing. The giant squid attacking the ship. Exactly. Yeah, Tron 2 is another example of great special effects, made before CGI. Although that was probably more the beginning of CGI. But anyway, back to 20,000 Leagues. Of course, you have Kirk Douglas, Peter Lorre, and the only time he ever played a good guy in movies, because even in movies like Casablanca, he was always sinister, he was always wicked. And I feel like in 20,000 Leagues, he finally got to play an unabashed good guy. And of course, we cannot talk about 20,000 Leagues without talking about, James Mason as Captain Nemo. That easily is one of the greatest performances, not just performances in, a Disney movie, performances, in an adaptation of a book. Greatest performances in cinematic history is his version of Captain Nemo. It is just so well done. And it's so more obscure today compared to what it used to be. And I highly recommend that everybody seeks it out. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It is such a fantastic movie.
Oh yeah, I mean I can understand. I have never seen the movie. It's probably on Disney Plus, but yeah, I agree. It's really interesting to hear you say that about the movie. I might definitely give it a watch.
Yeah, I'd have to.
My favorite live action movie I have a top 3 if that makes any sense. The first, number 3 would have to be Tron and Tron Legacy. I am the only one who will stick up for Tron Legacy because say what you will about Master.
I do too.
Awesome! Oh fuck! Right. I really love that movie, especially if not for the music. Daft Punk does Tron Legacy's music, and it's fucking epic. I own the CD actually.
I bought Derezed on iTunes at one point. So.
Oh, same. Oh man, Daft Punk really made the music in that film.
Oh, they definitely did. They were easily probably the best part of Legacy, to be honest. So, what's your number 2?
I have a second number 3. Second number 3 is Tron and Tron Legacy. I also love Tron Legacy because no disrespect to Master Control Program and Sark, but holy crap, Clue is also, if Narissa was the most underrated, I would arguably say that Clue is one of the most underrated because his plan, he is pretty much a foil to Kevin Flynn, and it honestly shows in the most dark ways. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. The way they brought back, Jeff Bridges from the original is really well done, I feel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, number 2, I would honestly have to give it to oh gosh, what was it? I would have to give it to Roger Rabbit.
Oh, I agree with that too.
Which, by the way,
definitely, Roger Rabbit is easily up there. It's definitely my top.
Oh yeah,
probably top 3. And it's just one of those movies that we will never ever get again. Like the stars aligned in like a perfect celestial way to get that movie to be made. There is no way you could make that today. And I mean that in many ways than one. Just the rights issues alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually made a. Oh, okay. I'll explain.
I was just saying, Robert Zemeckis' films these days are just not as great as they used to be.
Oh no, compared to like the greatness of Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future and Forrest Gump and all that, how much he kind of just is going to like the basically Disney remake well, basically, with Lion King and with Pinocchio, and they really turned out a shame. But the man did Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future, and those two movies alone are always just, you gotta basically get out of jail free card for making those two movies, basically, in my eyes.
Indeed.
Yeah. And I forget who the animator was for Roger Rabbit, and also
Richard Williams.
What?
Richard Williams. He also did.
Yes.
Everything.
That was him. But yeah, that's also my favorite live action animated blend. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, that actually was going to be my answer as well. And
yeah.
I think my second answer probably would have been Mary Poppins, because that whole Jolly Holiday sequence is just so well done, especially if you learned how they did it. It is just so amazing how well put together that sequence is. But yeah, for my favorite live action animated hybrid, again, I have a tie. It's between Roger Rabbit and Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Mary Poppins and Mary Poppins Returns are both tied for number 2 in that regard. But number 1 is also the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Yeah. Not the other two. I have yet to see them.
I saw the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean.
The one with the mermaids, basically, right?
On Stranger Tides.
That's what it was
called. that one.
I saw on Stranger Tides.
I saw that in theaters too.
I didn't.
And I walked away so disappointed.
I didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah,
I saw it on TV, like on Stars or something, and it was just.
Yeah, I will stand up for the trilogy, though. It had really great villains. The premise was really dark, and honestly, it got a little weird sometimes. But I will say this: it was a lot more consistent than what we got in the 4 and 5.
Oh, definitely. It definitely is more better than that. All right.
Yeah. What about you, Math?
Keep up with the pirate theme. Muppet Treasure Island.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yes, that is so good. If we're counting Muppet movies, okay, that totally changes my whole thing. Because I'm sorry, Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island are the best. The best. They would probably be maybe not as good as 20,000 Leagues, just Swiss Family Robinson and Mary Poppins, but man, those are just so great, so fun. God, I love them. When we do the episode on dinosaurs, Jim Henson's dinosaurs, I'm just gonna gush about the Muppets for half an hour when we do that episode. I tell you.
Oh man. Oh man. Man.
Over 50% of the episode is gonna be on the Muppets themselves.
Yeah, the Muppets on general. That's going to be so much fun. We're not going to have a time to talk about, Fran Sinclair on that. We're going to be gushing about the Muppets. But, it is just, God, Muppet Treasure Island, that is just so hysterical. I had the VHS as a kid, and I would watch it over and over and laugh every time. I have it on DVD now, and I still laugh hysterically. They were just so
the
great.
Jokes in there were really fun.
I have yet to watch those, unfortunately.
You're gonna miss out. Believe me, you are really gonna like them. I think that is such a great. They're a great time.
More movies to add to the list of what I should watch.
Yeah, there's I have a top 3 overall of Treasure Island stuff. Number 1's easily the 2000 Treasure Planet. Number 2 would be Muppet Treasure Island, and number 3, unabashedly, would be the one with Dr. Livingstone. It's so weird, but
the Soviet one, that's such a weird movie, but it's just the animation is incredible. It really, really is great.
Yeah, the Toonish antics really works too.
But the movie is so good.
Oh yeah, the movie is awesome. Oh man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What really helped Muppet Treasure Island
Sorry?
Yeah, what really helped Muppet Treasure Island was that they actually found an actor who was more animated than the Muppets themselves in Tim Curry.
Oh, Tim Curry! Another thing, after last week's episode, Tim Curry, man's great in everything. Shame he wasn't in this, but can't have everything in life. So now it is time to go to the patent-pending Dragoness Scale to rank Narissa herself. And I will start, of course, and I am going to give her a 9 out of 10 It's actually a higher ranking than what Maleficent. Than I think what Maleficent got, but I feel like she just gets that extra point mostly for the fact that she is arguably the evil dragoness who speaks the most, and just her characterization, it just works so well, and the effects look so good. I can't give her a perfect 10 because I feel like a perfect 10 is meant for like the really, really, really great ones. But she definitely is really great enough to where she has to get a near perfect score.
Yeah, absolutely. I would give her an 8 out of 10 because it's been a while since I've seen Enchanted. Also, her design, for the most part, while smooth, slender, keeps in character, I don't know, something about the mouth kind of makes me feel like it's... but still, it's a very high grade, and I'm honestly really impressed that we got to talk about this one, especially with her impact and the overall impact of Enchanted. So yeah, that's an 8 out of 10 for me.
It's a 9 out of 10 for me. I'm a little biased when it comes to certain villainesses, honestly.
No, yeah.
Who isn't?
Exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Mathmachine?
I'm actually going to be the voice of dissent here.
Oh.
I'm a 6 because I just do not like the design as much. There's especially the head crown part. It invokes the images of the Jabberwocky to me, the way that her body and her particularly head are made, and it just doesn't look as intimidating as I want it to be, and it just doesn't click with me.
Where are the Jabberwocks, my son?
I think that the head crown kind of works in more of like a way of like regality that you don't really see in a lot of dragonesses. But
it matches her outfit, basically.
Yeah, basically, and it matches basically, her character, the evil queen, basically.
Absolutely. Oh, I absolutely agree with the symbolism of it, and I do appreciate that. But in practice, I just didn't think it worked.
Definitely. And Evie, what do you think? What rating would you give to Narissa?
Well, I think the same one. Like,
so another 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't like the head shape.
That's true.
Right.
I mean,
that's fair. That's fair enough. Nobody can always like everything.
I like.
Yeah, you don't have to like everything.
I like the head shape, mostly because
the head shape isn't bad. It's more like the overall head. That's like, I don't dislike the head design. It's unique, but like, it's not enough to really have me rank it any higher than 8. She's certainly great in character, and again, the design works. But yeah, there are some things about the head that really make you think,
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's because I really enjoyed the Skyrim dragons,
Same. I also enjoyed Smog. I also enjoyed Charizard. I also enjoyed the Spyro franchise.
There's so many great ones, and we're definitely going to get to a lot of them on this podcast. Of
course.
Absolutely.
The one, I don't know what it was called, but it was the one dragon from Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh yeah, the Lord of Thunder.
Right.
Thunder, that's what it was.
Thunderlord, yeah.
On a couple months, we might be talking about Mario with dragonesses and female saurians, so be there for that.
Indeed.
All right.
Yoshi's.
So if you have any questions, or if you want to talk more about Q the Winged Serpent, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter on twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be talking about the 2021 movie Raya and the Last Dragon.
Heck yeah.
We're going to talk about Sisu, that good noodle, and what might not be such a good movie. And until then, take care.
Yep, laters. And scene.